Hello and welcome to Meet the Eatmons Endangered Species Podcast, where we like to inspire, uplift, and spotlight families and individuals that are doing something special in today's world. We believe that families, marriages, relationships, they're under attack today. And so we're your hosts, Curtis and Spring Eatman, and we just want to help explore timeless values and principles that we think will strengthen couples, relationships, families, and help create extraordinary leaders. So we're excited to be here with you today.
Yes, we are.
So tell us, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so have you ever find yourself maybe in a relationship arguing for something that maybe 6 months ago happened? You have a laundry list of things you start bringing up. It's like it has nothing to do about really the budget. It has nothing really to do about the dishes, but it was something that came up that was something small, but it became very deeper.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty common, by the way. So today we're going to be talking about the 7 triggers that most relationships go through that create major arguments. So I'm interested to see, out of these, which ones that maybe you and your spouse or you and your relationship partner went through and are going through maybe at the moment, and how to overcome them. Because we want to turn those different type of issues to not necessarily, we call it ticking time bombs, but to really position you to have building blocks. So let's get right into it. All right. So the first one when it comes to the 7 most common relationship triggers is money.
Yes.
It's money. So what do you feel about money?
Yeah,
Right?
we've talked about this before. Money is a big one. It's one of the largest issues and one of the largest reasons why people get divorced today, why people end up splitting up in their relationships, because people just don't see money the same way. Sometimes people spend more than the other, or they don't budget the same, or they have different ideas of, how they should be utilizing their money. I know in my first marriage, that was an issue for me. I worked, I made money, but unfortunately, I didn't have as much control over money. And so when we ended up getting married later down the line, it was a big issue for me that I want to see my own money. Like, I don't want to feel like I have to go ask to buy a cheeseburger. Like, I want to be able to have my own money and have access to it whenever I
What's
want.
that Allen Iverson quote? After he retired, they were saying that he was so broke that he couldn't even buy a cheeseburger until he got to his trust fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
funny.
that-
What
that-
popped in my head. It was like, I got all this money, but I can't even buy a cheeseburger. But,
Yeah, and so I think that a lot of couples end up in that situation, maybe from past relationships or other things where maybe one person is more cautious because they feel like, oh, in my past, someone was an overspender, or maybe somebody feels more constrained about money because of a past relationship or not having access to it or having the freedoms to do certain things. So I think it's just really important to make sure that you guys are on the same page about how you're going to do your money. We have talked about this in the past about making sure that you have your own account, they have their own account, there's a couple account, the money goes into that account, you divvy it up into these other accounts, pay your tithes, all that kind of stuff. But it's just really important to be something that you are on the same page about from the beginning.
I think it's interesting because we did some research on this. Talks about Ramsey Solutions, says that money is the number one issue for married couples that they fight about, like the number one. And it's a leading cause of divorce is money. So is it really about money is the question, or is it more about like power, safety, or security?
I think it's both. I think it's about communication. For some people, it might be, and I think for some people there might be an issue between power and between safety. And so I think that's where money gets utilized in the wrong way.
It can be weaponized. Huh?
It can be weaponized a lot as power, because if I hold the purse strings, you can't go anywhere. If I hold the purse strings, you can't, you have to come to me to ask, and I have like this leverage over you. But then in some people might utilize it as safety, and that might be why they're a little tighter with their purse strings, or why they're
What are you calling it?
Purse strings.
Purse?
Yes.
Oh, I never heard of that before.
You never heard anybody say that?
Nah.
It's
I learned
literally
something
a
new
saying.
today too. What, purse strings? I
Purse
don't know.
strings, like.
Well, put in the comments if you know what purse strings mean.
Yes, it's like because back in the day, people used to keep their money in coin purses, and so you tie it like this to hold to close it.
Oh, I know I've seen one, but I didn't know it was called that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what they used to use, and so they always say purse strings because you closing it or opening it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's off topic, but still on topic, right? Like get your purse strings together. All right.
Anyways, be on the same page, okay? All right, what's the next one?
Yeah, but let's get some tips to it. Like, so,
Oh, yes, okay.
So when it comes to this, what some tips that we can go through is create a money mission together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's important. And like, what's the why behind the finances? So like, if you have an issues and that's an argument, like what's the goal together that we can both work together to save towards that, to work towards that, to make sure that we're both transparent on that.
Yes.
I think that can solve that
A
issue.
lot of times when you have that common goal, you're able to both see the reasons for why you both need to bend more than just because I said so or because this is what we should be doing. But if you're able to see the end and have the end in mind, then I think both people are more willing to come together and say, okay, let's create this kind of budget. Let's stay on the same page and make sure that you're doing it that way. I think we also always talk about making sure that you're sitting down together at least once a week. Talking about your finances, going over like where are we at, how much money did we bring in? Because also I think a lot of times what happens is one person sees, oh, we make so much money, why can't I spend it? But then the other person's looking at, okay, you're looking at what's coming in. You're not paying attention to what's all going out.
Yeah, that dollar was spent before it came in.
Exactly. And so I think just having those transparent conversations, being on the same page, it allows both parties to be able to find their place in the budget and find where they're able to add to it, where they're able to identify with it.
That's a really good point. So now they're both contributing to the goal, you know, versus being separate. That's good. Next one. I think everyone always has this one interesting, especially when it comes to relationships, sex and intimacy. All right, because
spicy.
They are two different things, right? So, you know, this is just about frequency when we talk about sex. We're talking about connection, vulnerability, and validation.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to this topic, like, what do you think why do you think so many couples come to I guess you would say a intersection when it comes to this conversation?
I think that this is kind of circling back to, it's so important to have that intimacy in your communication, in your nonverbals, because for men, they're very physical. Women are very emotional. And so you have to have all the aspects for them to come together, because a man might feel neglected, but then he's neglecting emotionally. But then a woman might feel neglected emotionally, so then it's hard for her to bridge into physical intimacy.
So she's neglecting physically.
So it's important to have both. And it's really important just to make sure that you are tapping in with each other, asking, you know, what do you like? What are the things? Because even though you might have been together for a long time, you might be in a situation where you're getting in a rut. Like, okay, yes, we are sleeping together once a week or whatever, twice or three times a week. But at the same time, maybe missionary is getting boring. Maybe it's like want to spice things up and change things up. Yeah. And so I think it's really important for you to kind of keep things spicy and kind of make sure that you're surprising each other and consistently checking in with each other emotionally as well as physically, because they both do go hand in hand.
Do you think I think we talked about this last podcast. You can check it out, by the way, if you didn't get to check it out. It was about can one meeting a week, one date night a week save a relationship?
And the answer was yes.
Yes, right. But then you can get creative with that. If this is an issue, which you're talking about spicing it up, is hey, this week is your time to figure out how you're going to spice up our date night and whatever it is, and then next week is mine. So now you're kind of like competing to try to spice it up the most, but you're ultimately going to both be happy because it's both being spiced up, right? Like, so
exactly.
that might work, when you think about if this is an argument.
Yeah, and
right,
it's funny because we sit with a lot of couples, and
yes,
even though every couple has heard it and they all know you should go on a date night, you should not neglect that, you should not move it, you should make sure you're still communicating in that way. It's just so interesting how often that is the first thing that people remove from their schedule and from their priorities.
I agree.
You know, it's like, oh, I see you all the time. Like, we're fine. We have dinner at home all the time. And
Right.
it's like, but that's not what it's about. It's not about checking the box of eating a meal together. It's about creating the space and the time of actually being together and spending the time together. And I think that it's important for the things that create contention in your relationship, whether that be, let's say you're running a business together and you're trying to, you know, figure that out, or maybe the kids are, you know, acting out and they're starting to become an issue, or, you know, maybe finances is the issue, or whatever the thing that kind of brings up contention in the relationship. I think it's important for you to make that a no-fly zone in your bedroom. Like, that has to be a place where it is almost like a sanctuary for you, where you're able to reconnect to each other, that your spirits, when you walk in this place, your mind automatically, subconsciously knows this is where we connect. This is where we reset.
Right.
Because I know, like, for example, when you go into your work building, that's why they say don't eat your lunch or take your break at your desk, because then your brain thinks, oh, it's okay to have leisure here. But if you only do work at your desk, then your brain only thinks of work activity at your desk. And so in the same way, if you're only thinking about your relationship, like being a place of like a sacred place for your relationship in your bedroom, then that will create that kind of space in your spirit to start pouring those things out, and you'll start to seek connection with each other in your bedroom.
I like that. That's legit. So here's a tip. You know, this is an argument consistently. Schedule intimacy check-ins. You know, the same way.
Not necessarily schedule intimacy, like
like
fun
I
with
was about to
Dick
say
and
the fun with Dick and Chick. I was just about to get
It's
into
like,
it.
oh my gosh, we should get the Sade CD
At
It's gonna be
Starbucks.
great on Thursday.
Hey, make sure you get it at Starbucks. The demo's there. I was like, oh my gosh. All right. So not that. You know, don't schedule that part. But, you know, just a check-in and say, how you doing? You know,
Yes,
you know, in regards to
absolutely.
intimacy. That's a good one. So I know a lot of people like that one, right? So number 3 is communication styles. Okay. I know I was looking at some research, and so studies from Gotham Institute shows that couples who turn toward each other emotionally have a higher relationship satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, because communication, it's one of those things that it's such a foundational.
Don't you have like a meme or something like that when it comes to
we talked about, right? Communication.
It solves everything, right? Ultimately, that solves every 7 of these points we're going to go through. But
because if you are not communicating, you're not on the same page, it is literally the bedrock of your relationship.
Right.
And if you are not in the place of having that, you are on a shaky foundation, because you can't assume, you can't think that your partner's just going to know, and you can't think that should be common sense, because nothing is common. Everything is perspective.
Common sense, not
Everyone's
common sense.
grown up differently, has different views of the world. And so it's just really important to communicate and over communicate when in doubt, because it just will help you to avoid certain issues that you just don't have to have if you're able to communicate. Like, if you do something that I don't like, or I do something you don't like, and we're able to communicate about it up front, instead of letting it fester, and then I see you do it again, and then a week later now I'm upset and I have this whole story in my mind, you know what I mean, versus us just saying it in the moment, like, hey, that kind of didn't feel right, like, what was that about, you know? And then it's kind of like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. It's like, oh, okay, cool, I can move on, instead of letting it be like another, you know, file in the case against you, right?
Dang, you said putting a case on somebody.
You're building a case.
Couples do though.
They
It's like,
do.
you know, you didn't put the toothpaste away, and you add that to the file, right?
So what do you think? Do you think when it comes to communication, how do you think tone plays into it? Do you think tone is important? Do you think it's something that can build a wall? Do you think that it can bridge you to each other? What do you think tone?
I think tone is everything, because not what you're saying, it's how you said it. You know, and it's about the vibration, the energy, the when I say energy, I'm talking about like the hands, the neck popping, if there's any of that. All that, it could play a big part, because most communication is not verbal, it's actually nonverbal.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, And so, especially, from men to women, the tonality of it is very, very important. And also, I would say to men to women, because if I say, "Hey, spring," like hovering you, that's different than saying, "Hey, spring."
Yes.
The tonality. So I think tonality has everything in regards to how you're communicating.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can almost say anything to anyone if you say it in the right tone and you say it the right way with a care and intention behind it. Then most people are receptive, but they have to be able to see your heart and understand where you're coming from and not feel attacked.
That's it. If it comes from love, right, and not just a position, then I think it will be received properly.
100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's a tip that you would give anybody that's maybe going through the communication issue right now or argument? Maybe you're in it right now and you clicked on this and you say, you know what, I need that one. What's a tip you can give them?
It's important to mirror, right? So instead of just assuming that you heard what the other person had to say, it's important to mirror back and say, okay, so what I heard you say was X, Y, and Z. And not you said it, it's more of a, what I heard you say, am I getting that right? And then when you mirror it back, they have the opportunity to make adjustments to what you thought you heard if you were wrong, or they can confirm, and then you're on the same page. I think the other thing that's really important is using I statements instead of you statements. Instead of, you made me, you. That is building blocks of a wall right in front of you. Because whenever you're saying you, I automatically start feeling attacked. But if I take ownership of my own emotions and feelings, as I should, because you actually can't make me anything. No. You can't make me mad. You can't make me frustrated. I can choose to be frustrated in response to whatever you said or did, 100%. But you can't make me anything, right? I can say things like, I felt a little hurt when I heard you say boom, boom, boom. And I don't know if that was your intention, so then that way the other person is a little more disarmed. They hear your position and then they're able to have the opportunity to say, oh no, that's not what I want. I don't want you to be upset. Rather than they don't even hear that you're upset. They just feel attacked and start defending themselves.
That's it. And now you both are what? In an argument.
Exactly.
That's it. Let's go to number 4. That was actually a good tip, babe. Number 4 is chores and responsibilities, especially if y'all living together. All right. And we gave an example of some couples that don't live together. So those chores and responsibilities may be a little different because you got 2 different households. But if y'all live together, sleep in the next bed together. Next bed. Same bed, hopefully,
better not
right?
Be the next bed.
Right. Man, I remember you telling me someone in your family, you mentioned it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they lived in the same house, had different beds. I thought that was interesting.
It was because they weren't married yet. So they had purchased their house.
Okay.
But they weren't married yet. So they were sleeping in 2 different bedrooms of the house until they got married. Okay. So that they could make sure that they were still doing things the right way. So I was like, good for y'all.
Good for y'all. Hey, don't judge me. I definitely would be sneaking in your bed. Tiptoeing at night.
No, that's some real willpower right there. Just
my gosh.
I know, that's awesome.
I don't know about that one. But sounded good. All right. Anyways, chores and responsibilities. So, it really talks about like workload. Is it often, or, is your workload most often, or is it more like resented?
Yeah. So I think that it's really important to understand what everybody is committed to doing.
That part.
Not what you expect them to do.
I like that.
Right? Because I might be somebody who, just because I'm a woman, I might rather chop down trees than wash dishes. Right? We know somebody like that who doesn't mind doing all of them.
All of them, all the above. But
His mom, she's crazy. This woman will literally go outside, mow the lawn, chop down the trees, trim the bushes.
My dad says, "What are you doing? Why am I hiring all these people for? I might as well just hire you." Like, she goes does their job before they do it.
She's like, well, they don't do it as good as me. But the thing is like, she's like, but you better not fire my gardener.
Yes.
Hers does be looking nice though. I can't. But like, I had to tell you up front, like, don't expect me to be like your mom. I'm not going to be outside chopping trees.
My expectation is so low that there's no disappointment ever.
Yes, okay, like do not expect that from me, because your mom sets the bar very high in those areas, and I'm like, listen, she is not me. I am not doing that. So that's important though, that you have those conversations up front.
Very important.
So that, because if he was expecting me to wash the dishes and fold the clothes and feed the kids and be the business partner and go and chop the trees, he would have been real mad over there by himself, because I would have been over here like,
not chop the trees. I could never see you chop a tree.
I'm glad, because you won't never see that.
Over seeing your plaid, your Timberland boots. Lumberjacket over there. That would be pretty funny to see you over there. I could never. I
promise you'll never see it. Shout out to you, Mama Kim. I love you so much, girl. Yes, you are the real MVP. Yes, but yeah, so it's important to make sure that you are sharing the workload and not having this unspoken expectation of what the workload should look like. There are some women that think, I should stay home and take care of the kids. And there are some men out there that are resenting the fact that their wife is not working, right? Or the fact that there's some men that feel like, well, I'm taking care of the house and you make more money than me, so I shouldn't just have to work, right? And that can be an issue too for some women. Like, I don't care how much you make, but it's important to me that you work or contribute. So these conversations are just really important.
That comes back to communication. Yes. That'll probably help a lot. But this is an argument, though. This chores and responsibilities is an argument. So, I mean, a tip could be creating a us calendar, and figure out the things that we committed to that makes the household go.
Yes.
That makes, again, our family business, I guess, because I think families is a business that ultimately rise to where we want. But I think you don't need to divide the roles fairly. It needs to be 100 in effort. Not 50-50. Some people say, well, you do 50-50. Like, no. It needs to be 100 towards effort, towards helping each other.
Yes. Agreed.
So there is some things, again, that we may overlap in chores and responsibilities. There's things that I have full responsibility of because I committed to that, and I'll make sure it goes. But I would make a list of all the things that need to be done, and then you guys literally choose based on your strengths and your talents, and again, with things that just need to be done. Sometimes it's not even about like, oh, you're good at money or I'm good at this. It's like, if this don't get done, this whole thing is shut it down anyway. So let both of y'all figure it out, right? Go take a class on this, or go. If you do, hey, trees do need to be cut. You maybe should go hang out with mom real quick.
I'm excited for you to hire the people that do that. Right. But just be clear. What does help look like to your spouse, to your partner, so that you guys can be on the same page about it? Okay. Cool.
Let's go to the next one. What's the next one for us?
Families and in-laws,
this might
which sometimes are the outlaws.
Yeah, they definitely can be an outlaw versus we call it what, family in-loves.
Yes, for us it's in-loves. Some people say
this in-law. Is arguments, though. Yeah,
we say in-love because we really do. We're so blessed that we really do love each other's parents, and we really do have great relationships with each other's parents. But it's very important to understand boundaries when it comes to
this is a big one.
Family and in-laws. My family is I came from a family of all women, very open. I mean, he would get so annoyed when we first got together. I had to really learn, because we would just pee with the door open because there was no boys in our house. So it was like, who cares? And we had one bathroom most of the time. So it was like, you better not lock that door. Somebody else needs to come in here and brush their teeth or do their hair or wash their hands.
Does that sound weird? You brush your teeth with someone peeing? I don't know.
That wasn't weird to us because we grew up like that was normal. It's like, we don't have time for you to do all you need to do in the bathroom. I want to know in the comments
right now if you peeing with somebody brushing their teeth in there.
Everybody has to keep it moving, do what you got to do, and get in and out. Hey, I'm not paying attention to you peeing over here, but it's like, hey.
What if you passing gas and you over there?
Well, of course, when they would go to the number 2, they would close the door. But
I'm just asking questions.
Point is, he had an issue with that, and I was like, what? Like, it was so weird to me. So, I mean, you have to understand what are the things, right? Or the fact that, like, my sister, when she would come over and she would just walk in the door, and I would give her the door code, and he would be like, you gonna have to start knocking or announcing, because I'm about to get my gun in a minute. I don't know who's coming in my house.
Yes. I almost had a 2-piece like 3 or 4 times. Like, But I love her though. She's good people.
And they came from a family that like, nobody knew where they lived. They were very private, very like.
They knew where we live, Spring. They just announced themselves before they show up. Like he's like, hey, I'm coming over, and we said yes.
It's different. It's different. Yes. So you have to
see how we get an argument right now. That's how we argue.
You can respect each other's boundaries on these things, right? And making sure that you're on the same page. For some people, it doesn't matter if the in-loves come over and they're in your room. For some people, that is an absolute no. You do not come in my room.
That's true.
You know, there's some people that they have issues with the in-loves coming over and just like picking up the kids or, you know, doing things inside the house, you know, decorating or helping do other things. And they think they're being helpful and the other person is going crazy. So it's very important. I can say, you know, I had some outlaws in my time, not your parents. My first husband's parents, we had a really tough trial, and she was just very much a habitual boundary crosser. She would kiss him in the lips. If he bought me something, he had to buy her something. It was just lots of things like that. You know, asking for money, just lots of issues, and it caused a lot of issues in our marriage. So I think that it's really important for you to be on the same page before these things happen, because once these things start to happen, and then you have to bring it up, and now they have to go and have a conversation with their parent. That's uncomfortable. So they need to know the rules up front so that if something comes up, they already know to say no, or they already know to like bring it up. So then it's not becoming an uncomfortable problem where I'm like, I don't want to have to say that to my mom, so you just gonna have to deal with it.
Well, definitely present a united front if this is an issue. Okay.
Boundaries. Make them, live by them, love them.
So we're going to have a shirt coming out your way. If you have this is your argument consistently, we have a shirt your way coming. I promise you. All right. 6. We only have 2 more.
Parenting differences.
Oh, this is a big one. You know, one word. Unity.
Unity.
You must have unity. All right. No pun intended. All right. So, you know, the real question we need to ask each other if this is an argument for you is, are we a team?
Yeah.
You know, because we are definitely trying to parent these kids. You know, we're growing these little leaders. And are we either playing against each other, right? Trying to have the same goal, or are we playing with, you know, I won't say playing with each other. I'm not talking about sex and intimacy right now, but you give a go. You see my mind goes right off the back, you know? All right, anyways.
Jesus.
Yes.
Stay focused. Stay with it.
Worship, baby. All right, so do we parent from a reaction or intention?
Yeah, that's important.
That's huge.
Because I think a lot of people end up reactionary when really if you start with intention, things are not always going to be perfect. Kids are kids. You're going to have to deal with what you got to deal with. But it's important not to be in a position where you're frustrated and taking your anger out on the kids. Right?
That's big. So what's a tip for someone that's maybe arguing or in argument or clarifying discussion, right? On parenting differences?
Yeah, you have to definitely talk about what your values are. What are the things that are important to you as a family? Have family meetings. Understand, you know, what your intentions are, and have the kids understand their boundaries.
That's big. With
you as a family, and when they cross them, that there is going to be a consequence. We always talk to our kids about the fact that you get to choose your choices, but you don't get to choose your consequences.
Not at all.
And so you have to be very mindful about what types of consequences could come if you choose not to be intentional about the choices that you choose. Yes. And so as parents, we try not to allow our emotions to get too in it. Yeah. And if they are, then it's like pass the baton. I'm too emotional. I'm really upset. You handle this one, so that I'm not going into this crossing boundaries because I'm really upset.
Oh, that's big.
And I end up saying something or doing something that I can't come back from, right? Because then you don't realize it, but you're also teaching your children how to deal with conflict in those moments. And so if you're consistently upset and coming to them with your anger, then when they're upset, then they're lashing out at people when they're upset as well. So it's just it's really important
that you
thing.
Say that, because like I'm even thinking about, you know, our youngest, you know, she's in the we call it parroting, not parenting, but like a parrot, something that mimics.
Yes, parroting.
Yeah, parroting phase, right? And then they go from 2 to 6. they're all in parenting. They're only copying what they see.
Yes.
And so you'll see her little sassiness now and all these different things. She just turned 3. I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And
she is definitely parroting, and I've had to watch my whole mouth. I'm like, I'm moving around. I said, oh, what the hell? She said, what the hell? I said, oh. Gotta watch that. Can't be saying certain things.
No, not at all. Great parenting, right?
Mommy and Nova said a bad word. We don't say that.
So now she's the bad word police. I'm over here and said, did you freaking do this? And she's like,
ooh, you said bad
word? Ooh, bad word? Don't say bad word, Daddy. I'm like, when did frick become a bad word? It
sounds bad coming out of a 3-year-old.
Yeah, still, I was like, okay, baby, you're right. You know what?
All right, so what's the tip? Let's get to it.
All right, tip is creating, again, parenting values together. So you sit down, you list down all the values together that are very important to help, again, I guess you say, help your children go to the next level. But you got to also ask, like, what do we want to instill?
Yeah.
Because that's going to actually give a connection to the value that you're creating. And why are we trying to instill this? Are we trying to instill a certain principle, leadership? What is it that we're instilling?
Yeah. Okay. And I'll say this too, because although that is the intention, sometimes nobody's perfect. Sometimes you might mess up and you might lash out with your emotion. And I think this is where, as parents, we have to evolve to understand that it's okay to apologize to our kids and let them know that we were wrong in a situation.
You are human.
We're human, because then that also shows them how to handle things when they are wrong, right? So I think that's also important. Okay, last one. Trust and jealousy.
Dude, trust. I think we did a podcast on this one too, right? About trust, how important it is. And but when you have no trust and you have jealousy kicking in, you definitely have a problem. You probably have a lot of arguments, you know? And so, it might be trust on social media. You're always on your phone, chuckling, all that stuff. Like, who's sliding your DMs? Past trauma, things that, again, that you may have gone through. Maybe unclear boundaries we just talked about. You might have some big trust issues on unclear boundaries. That can all be some major landmines. So like, what's your thoughts on, I guess you would say, some questions to explore when it comes to someone's insecurity, when it comes to this
Are you
topic?
Meeting their insecurity with empathy or with defensiveness? That's important to understand, because if you have empathy and you understand and you're trying to circle back to address their emotions and their feelings, then that's important. But if you're defensive and you're argumentative, then it only pours more fuel on the fire, and then they feel more in the right to have the emotions that they have.
That's good.
So you're encouraging what you don't want.
That's big. And then my last question to you in this one is, how important is it for a couple to define, like, what respect looks like in public or private?
I think it's very important, because what's respect to you could be like just not even the realm of existence of thought for me, and it could be something
like peeing in a room that I'm brushing my teeth in. I guess that would be. Guess that could be what. I don't know.
Just based off of, like, I just have no idea that is something that you perceive as a respect issue. Like for example, when we first got married and we would get in a disagreement and I would challenge you in front of people, like, no, that's not right. No, it should be like this. And for me, it was just saying what I thought was right. I wasn't fighting you, or I didn't think I was. I thought I was just asserting, like, no, this is what, and for you, that was a respect boundary crossed. Yeah. And it took me a long time to understand that, because I was like, but why? Why can't I just say, and you're like, yeah, you could say anything to me and you, but when you're challenging me in front of people, that's challenging me as a man, and that's a problem. And so because I didn't grow up with men, it wasn't something that I really understood. Yeah. And so I think it's just important to discuss those things. And when the person, if it's once or twice, I think it's important to give them the opportunity and just assume that they just don't know. let it be a learning opportunity, share, and then if they consistently is stepped over as a boundary, then okay, we have a problem.
Now
with
you're
something to
disrespectful
talk
because
about.
I've already told you.
Right, right. But it's just important, I think, to tackle it there.
That's big.
What do you think is a good tip for this area?
I think it's important to do emotional check-ins. You know, and ask. I think we talked about this previously. Like, where are you at? You know, I think it was a date night one we talked about, like the different questions, but like emotionally, like where you are right now, like 2 feet present, heartbeat, like where are you at? I think it's important. And then another question is like, where's your heart today?
Yeah.
Is your heart in the conversation? Is your heart in our relationship? Is our heart in our family? Like,
right.
And what's the disconnect so we can get it back, you know, pumping the right way, right?
Yep.
So these are your 7, huh? These were kind of crazy, right? When you start thinking about them.
And I feel like we could have dove so deep into each one of these, but yeah.
Yeah. For time though, we're going to have to catch you guys on the next one. But if you're going through any of these, now you have 7 different, I guess you would say, tips to not just, again, go through it, but to position yourself to grow from it. You know, so what's your closing remarks on this conversation before we actually close out?
I would say that I'm just so excited that you all joined us today. I hope that this added value to you. Just tell us in the comments if there's anything else that you think is another important thing that comes up in relationships that can be an area of contention for relationships that we should look out for and create a system around before it becomes an issue. But as we're wrapping up this episode today, guys, just remember, with all the constant things that are going on in the world and all the things that are happening, you know, strong family values and principles, strong relationships, they are just so important. And today, it's just such an endangered species. And so we believe that if there's something inside of you that you can reach down and see that feels like it's an endangered thing inside of you, leadership, entrepreneur, whatever it is, reach inside yourself and bring it out, cultivate it, grow it, because it's not just important that you survive, but it's vital. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Meet the Eatmons Endangered Species Podcast. Take care, everybody. See you next time.